All right. Yeah, so very warm welcome to all of you for our first ever Courage Cafe, organized by the Courage chapter. So today we have two lovely guests, right? We have Adeline and Dane. Some of you already know them, and they will be sharing some of their insights on how we can all unlock our second chapter. So before that, let me share with you a bit of an engagement tool that we will use to gather your questions, right? So this is a pigeonhole. I think most of you would already know how to use it. So what you can do is to go to pigeonhole.at and type in the passcode courage or scan the QR code. And this would allow you to go to our pigeonhole page and ask any relevant questions that you have. And we would answer these questions towards the second half of today's session. So for this one, you can ask questions anonymously, or you can upvote other people's questions as well. So we'll be choosing the most popular questions, right? Something that garners the most responses to answer later. All right. Okay. So I think maybe later we will send this link on the chat as well. But right now we would be happy to get started. Right. So for those who don't know us, my name is Kai Ning. And yeah, oh, yes, thanks, Jess. Yeah. So my name is Kai Ning, and together with Jaslyn, we are the co-founders of the Courage chapter. So personally for myself, I was a HR professional from Unilever and a co-founder of a social enterprise called Career Socials for 7 years. Career Socials is a company that does personal branding, and we also help the youth at risk as well. Yeah, so but for the Courage chapter, I was inspired actually by my own relatives and parents to start this social venture because I really saw how they benefited from doing fractional work, after retirement. And it really gave them a way to contribute their skills meaningfully as well, which I feel is very important for mental and emotional well-being, right? So that's a little bit about me. And maybe I'll pass my time over to Jess to introduce herself quickly.
Hi everyone, my name is Jaslyn. Today I'm feeling like a little bit under the weather. But anyway, similar to Kaining, my background is also in human resource with specialization in compensation and benefits. So for me, the motivation of why I started the Courage chapter is really to redefine the narrative of aging. As you know, as a society, Singapore, there is longer and longer longevity and longer lifespan. I feel that it is something that should be worth celebrating, instead of something that is at least like the current stage where it's typically the narrative of aging is typically associated with being vulnerable to scams, being sickly, being unhealthy. So, and also with my background in HR, there's a lot of, at least for me, the interest is what happens to life after retirement. So that's something I hope to explore. So, all right, back to you, Kenning.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Jess. And thanks for joining us despite being under the weather. Okay, so I think we can move to the next page. Right. Yeah, okay, so we do a brief 5-minute intro about what we do, simply because some of you may not know us as well. So the Courage chapter, we were established last year. We help senior PMEs to transition to their second chapter through meaningful projects with companies and leveraging their expertise for greater business impact. Right, so over to the next slide. I think just a little bit of statistics here. Right, so it is a fact, and all of us know that our Singapore workforce is aging, and birth rates are definitely declining. And we have been seeing an upward trend actually of people wishing to continue to contribute to society and work meaningfully, right? Even beyond age 65 years old. So you can see the statistics, right? We increased almost 100,000 more people who want to work even age 65 and above. Yeah, so it's quite interesting statistic. And the question then for all of us is, will we treat it like an issue, or is this actually an opportunity for Singapore? Yeah. Okay, and yeah, so in 2023, right, I mean, you can see that the buzz, like the government is also really focusing on it. In 2023, there's this action plan for successful aging, right? And the government kind of interviewed 5,000 Singaporeans. And what they found was that these are some of the things that the young seniors are looking for. So on the next slide. So they did find that actually seniors are looking for interest-based flexible jobs, right? And they're actually thinking of working longer, right, for various reasons. They want to contribute back to society, right? And financial self-sufficiency is also very important to everyone. All of this while still wanting to have time for their hobbies as well as some quality time with their loved ones. So you can see a couple of themes here, right? Wanting to do flexible kind of work, something that is meaningful and something that provides a little bit of financial stability as well. Yeah. And on to the next slide, we share with you what the organizations are facing also, because of course there must be a match, right? If let's say we want work, then who wants to hire, right? So we are looking for a mutually beneficial fit, right? So in the meantime, right, organizations also struggle to find right talent for their business needs. So some of an example is that startups and SMEs in particular, they have some financial constraints to hire some specialized staff to solve niche problems, right? So in fact, 50% of SMEs said that labor availability and cost is their top concern. So it's a very big problem for them, right? And it's also hard to find quality short-term contract workers, and especially in the VUCA environment, right? So basically in a very volatile economic environment, companies are looking to expand and contract their workforce on demand. It's a bit risky for them to hire many full-time people, because then it increases their cost, right? And it's very difficult for them to change the size of their workforce, right? So all of these are the struggles that organizations face. Yeah, so over to the next slide. And what we want to do is to match the needs and wants of organizations with our young seniors who are looking to work, right? So in three main things. The first one is flexible schedule. Both parties prefer flexibility in this situation. What we offer is actually like more short-term part-time type of employment, because we know that people retire for a reason. You don't retire back into a 5-day work week, but you may potentially want a 2 to 3 day type of flexible kind of work, right? And so you give you some time for family and hobbies, right? The second pillar is also important. So we want it to be a meaningful thing as well. So we try to match people who have relevant existing skills to contribute back to the organization. They can mentor the younger professionals, stay connected with society, and stay mentally and physically healthy, active as well. And the final piece is that there will be an income source also. So for all our jobs, right, they will be paid. Yeah, so I think there's a very interesting slant towards it, because we always hear that people, when they retire, then they get channeled into volunteering. That is a good thing as well, but nobody can volunteer for like 5 days a week as well. So what do you do with the rest of the time, and can you balance it up with something more income generating? So that is the kind of problem or challenge that we're trying to crack here. Yeah, so over to the next slide. Yeah, so this is how we match our business and our young seniors across different talent pillars. So it's still an experiment, of course, because we are new. But what we are looking to do is, to find something for various types of people. So if you would like to do like a temporary 6 months short-term type of, like, let's say you want to be a maternity cover for someone, or you want to help a company to tide over a busy period, you can take on contract gigs. For some of you who have more functional expertise and you want to contribute as a consultant, there is also a possibility to contribute your skills fractionally, right, for strategy and expertise. And the final piece that we have is the impact gigs. So for those who want to work in social organizations and start to kind of give back to society, that's also a possibility. And you can contribute your so-called corporate experience into the social sector as well. Yeah, so we have we're just sharing some case studies that we have successfully landed, right? So we have done various like consultancy to operational type of roles, depending on your desire, across MNC, startups, and charities as well. So of course, we are constantly expanding the companies that we are working with and growing, and we have seen quite some demand from companies. Of course, we would love to have a lot more. So the hope is that there's going to be a lot of both sides, right? Then we can do a perfect match as well. And we have done various roles and projects to be filled, right? Senior leader coaches, we have done. We have matched process improvement leads, right? So in procurement, HR consulting, payroll lead, as well as project management, yeah, etc. Yeah, so I think a very quick call to action before we get on to the next part, right? So if you're curious about what we do and you would like to join us and find out more, you can scan the QR code. It would link you to our website where you can put in your profile. What happens is that it would get channeled into our database, and we would do a call with you. and to find out what you are looking for in your next chapter, and see whether there's any potential match with any companies. Yeah, so your profile will be kept with us, and in future when there's other companies as well, you will be more visible to us, and we can then contact you. Yeah, so if you are not keen in that for now, you can also just follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook, where we'll be posting opportunities. Yeah. So of course, we are looking for you to join us as a returnee, and also if you are still working in the company, if you would like to champion this cause as well, we're very happy to reach out to us afterwards. Okay, amazing. Okay, so right now, right, I like to think of the courage chapter as step number 2, actually, of unlocking your next chapter after you know what you want to do. But step 1 is actually figuring out where you want to go in the first place. Like, how do I navigate this change, right? And I think this is represented by the work of Adeline and Dane. And this is the reason why we invited them for the sharing today, right? So I think some of you may know, they are quite LinkedIn famous, I would say. So Adeline is actually the author of Reinvent 4.0 and an executive coach. And Dane is a life design coach and executive mentor. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Adeline and Dane to do a short introduction about themselves. Hey.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, so you're going to the next slide. Okay, thank you, Kaining and Jess, for the kind introduction. And I would say that you both are so amazing in your effort to redefine the employment model, which is something that I so resonate with. And also want to thank the audience who have actually made time tonight to join us. I've seen really some good questions coming in before today's session. So I'll make my intro really short and concise because I want to give the time back to you all to ask the questions so that we can share our learnings and also to pose any answers, to answer any of your questions as well. So I will go to do a quick introduction of myself in the next slide. So it started 2 years ago. You can see here reinventing. 2 years ago, I published a book, Reinvent 4.0. 4.0 represents Industrial Revolution 4.0. At that time, when I did this book, I wanted it to be more future focused. So I did a lot of research on Industrial Revolution 4.0, the future of work. And when I did my book launch, I was asked, how am I going to tell my own story? And when I connected back the dot, I realized that actually I've reinvented 4 times, coincidentally. So that's how I tell my story today. As you can see, actually my career has been fairly linear. I spent the first 20 years as a traditional marketer. My genius skill is actually, super skill is actually marketing. Spent a good 20 years in marketing space in telco startup, and then moved to banks, working in global banks as well as local banks. And then I took a career break in 2017. And I got myself certified as a coach. Actually, not as to be a coach. It was not intentionally to be a coach, but it was more of a part of my own leadership development because I know that when I want to go back to, after my career break, I want to go back to work. So, and the power of network shows up, and I got myself, found myself a role in one of the organizations that was appointed by WSG to help place professionals back to work. So I spent 15 months coaching more than 250 clients, mainly PMEs, helping them place them back to work. These are really, most of them are either back to work mom, back to work dad, or people who were just recently displaced. And that gave me a lot of insights that later on helped contributed to my book. And then after my career break, I decided to move on to, I call it Adeline 3.0, because I became an unconventional marketer, right? I work in a startup. And the startup was actually a whole new world. I have to really roll up my sleeves. There were really new learnings. I'll talk a little bit about that later on. And then, of course, when I published my book, I decided to, well, that was 4.0. I finally decided to step off the corporate ladder. And the transition was not easy as well, because along the way, there were a lot of distractions. I was always distracted by shiny objects. And then finally, this year, I incorporated my business just 2 months ago to start my own coaching and mentoring practice. So that's where I am now. And people always ask me, is it better to be a specialist or generalist? I would say it's better to be a lifelong learner because throughout my whole career, I realized that I'm always learning. And that's why you can see below are all the certifications I've gotten in my effort to upskill myself. So I'm going to just pass this over to Dane to share her journey as well.
Hi, everyone. Dane here. Thanks for joining us. And also thanks, Ka-Ling and Jesslyn, for having me here. I'm really excited. I was very pumped up when Ka-Ling was introducing, the Courage chapter and what it does, because I think it will create a lot of impact and help so many people out there. So I'm going to give a quick intro about myself before we jump straight into the conversations tonight. I have here some numbers on the page. Who can guess what these numbers stand for? Type in the chat or unmute yourself. I hope you are not thinking that these are the total number or the 4D number that I'm buying this weekend. No, they are not. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? So actually, these numbers are a number of countries I visit. Okay, wow, getting there actually. A little bit about both my professional and my personal background. And I just thought that it's a nice way just to give a quick intro. So like a lot of Singaporean, I grew up following the Singapore script, study hard, get into the good university, come out, get a good job. And that's exactly what I did, right? Just follow the checklist. And I have actually jumped a number of industry in the course of my career. I studied in the business school, NUS Business School, and fresh from school, I went into the retail line. So the first company that I joined was DFS. Then I moved into luxury fashions, LVMH. And after that, I just thought, the retailers are at the back end of the chain, but I want to be a brand owner. So I moved into FMCG. So I was with L'Oreal, then subsequently Johnson & Johnson. Within Johnson & Johnson, I also have the opportunity to not just work with the consumer divisions, but also medical division. And then food business, then oil and gas, Shell. And within Shell, is a big company. So there is a lot of categories, a lot of sub-industry there that I have a chance to work into. And although I've only worked in 6 companies in my life, it's still a departure of where my parents used to be. Because growing up, I see my parents work for 1, maximum 2 companies in their entire life. And for my generations to jump that many companies, at that time, people are thinking, hey, how come you keep changing job? I know for the millennial and Gen Z, it is no problem because they change every 1-2 years. But for, Gen X and the generation before us, the pioneer generation, this is something that I think at that time, people are not used to. And I remember going to interview, people keep asking me, why you keep switching industry, switching companies. And to me, I think I always like to challenge myself, to expose myself to new learnings. And I don't switch for the sake of switching. I always have a goal in mind. I know exactly what I want and the value I can bring. But what is interesting was that as I was invited to this talk, I actually start counting the number of jobs or / roles that I had done in my entire life, including some part-time work and voluntary work as well. I was shocked and surprised that actually there is 28 jobs that I've done, including what I'm doing now. I was just thinking, wow, that's quite a big number. But I think that's also reflect, the skill sets and the requirement that is required of today's generation, what the workforce needs, someone that is more agile, more adaptable. And currently, I'm trying to build a portfolio career. I run my own coaching and consulting firm, but on the side, I also sit on the board. I also do some nonprofit work. So all this adds to what I'm doing now. On my personal life, because my mission is actually trying to build a life that integrates both work and life, and I have to work for my family. I mean, my family and my children are very important to me, so I try to mix the two together. There's 3 countries that I've lived and worked in, and the reason why I moved out of Singapore at that point in time is because my husband was posted overseas, and the entire to keep the family intact, I need to move. I need to take the job with me. And I mean, if there's time, I'm happy to share the stories of, how I make it work. It wasn't easy, but I think we all have the agencies to choose the life that we want and what works best for you. And who hate moving house here? I know I feel headache every time I move, but actually I've moved 13 times, houses, countries, in my life. And all these transactions are not easy, but I think you just need to roll on with, what life gives to you and make the best out of it. And lastly, I just wanted to share in the last 2 years, since COVID to now, because of my personal reinvention journey, I've literally spent thousands of hours upskilling and learning myself. All those credentials and credits that you see on the bottom of the chart are some of the certificates that I've amassed in the last 2 years. And that's how I transited from a corporate sort of executive specializing in marketing and branding to coaching and consulting, what I'm doing today. So I mean, the message here is that change is the only constant. It can be done, but you need to work for it and you need to be clear what works for you and your life. Okay, that's all for my intro. So let's go on to the conversation.
Thank you, Dane, and thank you, Adeline, for your sharing. Let me pin Adeline again. Give me a sec. All right. Okay. So I think it's very awesome. Right now, we will move on to the fireside chat. So I would like to share again. We want to keep it a bit more casual, right? So do feel free to type your questions on the chat. If you're not so comfortable, you can move over to Pigeonhole and ask your questions there. So it's completely anonymous, and you can ask whatever you want, and we will answer them later as well. All right. So awesome. Okay. So I think I have an opening question for both Dane and Adeline, right? Okay. So we see that you have actually successfully transited to your second chapter. Can you share with us a little bit about what was the trigger for you to leave the corporate world?
Okay, I shall start first. So that was post-COVID, a coaching question. A coach actually asked me this question: what would an 80-year-old Adeline thank me for what I do today? I never expected that. Then I decided, okay, especially COVID has changed my perspective of what's important for me. And I figured that, well, people are living longer these days, up to 83 years. And I'm young. I'm still young, not a young senior. And old enough with the years of experience, wealth of experience, but still young enough to learn. So I decided that with another, 20, 30 years, if I do not do something different now, when am I going to start? So that was actually the trigger for me to leave corporate. It was also, because at that time I was a coach already for 7 years. I was doing it as a side hustle during my last career break. So my last role was a stand chart. I was also coaching on the side. So that really and so in my heart, I was just thinking, what if I can be an extraordinary coach? What if I can do this? So a lot of, each what if brought me closer to taking that step, that leap off the corporate as well.
I love the what if, Adeline. I think your story really resonated with me. Similarly, I think my trigger, I can, trace back to COVID. And I always tell my friends, COVID, I mean, no doubt it was a very hard time. It have also given me an opportunity when my organization was going through a reorg. It really provided me a avenue to really reset and rethink what I want to do in the next phase of my life. There is always this lingering thought that I wanted to pursue something on my own, start my own business. But, in the business of life, that never happened. And my priorities is always my job, taking care of my family and my kids. So I actually give myself the permission, I would say, to try something very new to me. Scary it is, but I just thought that if it's not now, when would it be? It will be never, right? If I keep going on my life the way it is. So which is why I took the plunge, I took the pivot with a lot of courage. And I think also it's the time of the life stage. At this stage of my life, my maker makes like sort of the balance between money and meaning have taken a shift versus when I was in 20s and 30s. So right now, I'm really looking as to how I can give back, what's the meaning of everything that I'm doing. And I want to spend my time wisely and efficiently. I mean, so which is why I decided to leave the corporate and give it a shot.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So I think I really hear from both of your sharing a lot of the exploring of possibilities and having the courage to take the next step despite the fear. So I think it's really in two parts. And I think despite some triggers not everybody acts on the trigger. So I would say that both of you really took the courage and acted on it, and that led to where you are today, which is very
Yeah,
admirable as well.
actually for me, my first trigger was my first career break. Then once I took the career break, right, I felt that I was more adaptable. Okay, what's the big deal? Another career break. So it was a lot easier for me. The first time when I took career break, it was tough because I was in my 40s, right? I was very aware that in my 40s, would I ever get back to work? But it was with a lot of faith that I decided to take a break, and that was the best thing that I ever did.
Wow, that's really cool. And then Dane, so have you taken career breaks before also?
Yes, in fact, I've taken 2 career breaks. The first time I took a sabbatical was when my family relocated to Indonesia. I took close to a year off just to kind of settle the family, the move, and settle the kids, find school, etc. So with that, because I was still with Shell, I was able to find back another job. Though, I mean, with some difficulty, but I managed to do it in a different department, a different role. And my second career break was during COVID. So I also took a year to kind of reset, relearn, reinvent myself to what I'm doing now. And I think similar to Adeline, both times were very liberating, but I think I'm very fortunate to be able to have those opportunities that I can really think through what I want to do in life. However, I do also note that there will be some challenges for some people, having career break and trying to move back, because it's not always easy. Like when you're in a break, sometimes there's a loss of identity, especially people who work with MNCs, you have big title, big team. The moment you stop work, I felt it initially when I first stopped work, is that this loss of identity, but I was able to recalibrate very quickly. But I've seen some of my friends that they really find it a challenge. And also, without the company behind you, the business behind you, how you stay relevant and not upskilling yourself is a lot of discipline and hard work. It's really, then you need to push yourself because no one else will push you.
Yeah, so my first time when I took a career break, it was actually a very humbling experience for me, because I realized that no matter how high I climbed the corporate ladder, I was a frog in the well, because there was just so many things I don't know, right, outside of the realm of my work. So when I was working as a coach, I met people on the ground. I see really people who are single moms trying to get back to work, or people who have been retrenched, but they're so generous and so positive, despite their circumstances, and that was really very inspiring for me and very humbling as well.
Very
Agree.
interesting to hear. Yeah. So I think really, like, we touched about like self-identity. I think that's one of the biggest things that happen. Like, there's a bit of a loss of self-identity when you move from one thing to another. I think it's not only in career breaks itself, but even if you transition in your career, I think that self-identity would be shifted as well. And I think Adeline talked a little bit about like changing perspective also, being able to see a whole new world when you meet different kinds of people. So it's just very interesting. And actually, speaking about like transitioning, right? After undergoing all your various journeys, because I think both of you did so many different things, right, during your career. I think, Adeline, you say you reinvented yourself 4 times. That's why it's called Reinvent 4.0, right? But on hindsight, what do you feel like is important for people who are exploring their second chapter?
For me, right, and based on my experience also working with so many people, I think the key thing is the mindset, because for most people at the juncture wanting to explore something, I think the greatest thing that's holding a lot of people back is fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of failure. So I think having the right mindset is very important. The first step is actually you need to be clear and give yourself the permission. You need to say, yes, that I want to create the future that work for me. So, and with that, you need to learn to just go with the flow and let go of the fear. And I call this the YES. So Y is say yes to yourself. E is embrace your own journey. There is always a tendency to compare. You would say, oh, but I'm already at 40, I'm already at 50. Can I really start over again? Can I start a business? When someone else, now the startup, we see our 20s and 30s, you always feel like somebody else is better. So you need to let go of this comparison and stay in your own lane. Like, for example, KFC, Colonel Sanders, he started KFC at 60, and look at where KFC, the brand, is right now. And there is many of such example, people who actually succeeded in the later part of their life, 40, 50, 60. So it can be done, but you need to embrace your own journey. And third, very important, is as you need to stretch yourself. When I say stretch yourself, you really need to step out of your comfort zone. Doing anything first time is going to be very uncomfortable. Trust me, I mean, I've been through it so many times. It's not easy, but if you do not stretch yourself, you'll never learn, and you will always stay put constant in the same place.
Oh, thanks for
Yeah,
sharing.
thanks, Dane. I would actually resonate with what you've shared. But I would also add on to say that it's important, especially when you are at a crossroad, right, to take a step back and look at what's your purpose. And especially if you have been working for so many years, you know that there's this famous quote by this author, Bob Beaufort, who is author of Half Time. He said that we've spent the first half of our life making a living, and in the second half of the life, making a life, right? And I think it's about how do you take your success or significance, finding your purpose, number one, and also leverage your skills. Because moving to a next chapter doesn't mean that you have to give up what you have, right? It is about knowing, now that you have the wisdom, knowing what to give up on that hasn't worked for you, and being able to leverage on your skills, your network. And I would use this acronym FISH, right? Especially when you're in transition, right? Making sure that financially you have to really do your sums. F stands for financially, financial literacy. Get yourself your finances sorted out so that you can be prepared for fluctuations of your income. And I stands for intellectual stimulation, because we are all wired to think, right? I mean, having worked in organizations, we will miss that part of it when you want to really take time off to do something very different. You lose that also has to do with your identity as well. And then S stands for social. I think that's very important. A lot of people, when they left corporate, they would begin to realize that, hey, actually, when I was in corporate, people who talked to me, people were my friends, were actually because I was in the company. Then you realize who are your true friends, right? So it's important that while you are still working, build that network. And networking is not one way, right? It's two way. How can you also help the other party as well? And H stands for health. Importantly, stay healthy, so that when you move to the next chapter, you have the energy to be able to do something different and to learn.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I think very interesting acronyms, right? So Dane talked about yes, right? Yes to yourself, embrace and stretch yourself. And then Adeline talked about FISH, which is having the financial literacy, intellectual stimulation, social and health. I think these are the important pieces to explore your second chapter. I see some questions on the chat. I wonder whether we could go into them,
Yes.
since they are relevant currently, right? So I think with regard to the identity piece, right? Siu is asking, the loss of identity is a real one. So, how did both of you kind of overcome this challenge? I know that Dane mentioned briefly, but maybe you can elaborate, what's the journey of overcoming?
Yeah, I think the sense of loss is a real one. I mean, Susie, I agree with you. The moment they strip off my CMO title, my Shell name card, and all the perks that I have, right? You are basically, it's like back nothing. You are very raw. And for me, right, in that 1 year, I have to rebuild it. So I literally built a new identity for myself. And which is why just now in the slides, you can see that I'm trying to build a portfolio career. That's my new identity, something that works for me. But even before you can build the identity, I would say you need to be clear in terms of where is your purpose, where do you want to go? Then slowly, step by step, do it. But also along the way, do not be afraid to try new things. Because honestly, in the 2 years, right, I try a lot of things. Like when I first come out on my own, I went into, for example, sustainability. I went into a little bit of like teaching. I went to branding. So I do a lot of different things. And from that, right, those like prototyping and testing, that I know, okay, which one resonate with me more, which one I think I don't mind doing, I can see myself doing for the next like 5, 10, 20 years. And it's a process. You just need to give yourself time and grace to allow yourself to try new things. And I think the growth mindset, as we all know, is a very important part of it, lifelong learning growth mindset.
Yeah, for me, my loss, I wouldn't use the word loss of identity. When I was in my 20s, I was very focused on my career, right? The 4 Cs. I need to achieve this by a certain age. And then when I became a mother, that changed my perspective. My identity became being mother was actually a bigger identity than being, I begin to realize that no matter how many times I get promoted, how much pay increment I get, but big the title is, nothing beats the identity of being a mom, right? And I'm really proud of that role. And of course, being able to make a difference. And as I grow in my career, I was very focused on developing people. So I never really saw myself, I never really attached myself to a job identity. So it was a lot easier for me when I was want to transit out. And of course, my faith as well kept me very grounded.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, so I did see quite a few things you talked about, right? Experimenting, that's number one, to find what resonates with you. Having a growth mindset to learn new things. And I also saw from Adeline, you grounded yourself in different things. You don't only tie yourself to a job in terms of self-identity. And I guess that helps you to ground yourself and not feel a sense of loss, when you move from one career to another career. Yeah. So that's awesome. And I think very cool. We are seeing some like responses on the chat. So very dynamic. I love it. Right. So I think some people are also commenting. Like for example, Catherine is saying, when you have been doing so much for others around you, it's difficult to focus on your needs. So be kind to yourself. The time now is for you to focus on yourself and discover who you are. Yeah. So I think it really makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. So awesome. Okay. So I think it's very interesting because we did talk about like you transitioning. We see I see a question on the chat that perhaps you can take also, right? So Ziyong is asking, do you have like a decision matrix or a checklist, or a framework, let's say, that can help you to make a thoughtful decision on career transition? Anyone wants to take?
So I could, my career transition comes kind of big. Okay, so I started my earlier career in a very competitive environment. So I had tough bosses in my 20s, right? We have been hardwired to think 2 steps ahead. How do we beat the competition? So I apply that in navigating my career as well. How do I think 2 steps ahead? So I always had this mindset, right? When I start a new role, I have to start thinking, okay, where is this experience or skills that I learned going to take me to next? For example, when I was going to, okay, so when I took a career break, I knew that I was going back to work. And I was very intentional during that time to find out, okay, what are the sunrise industry? What's the in thing? What are the skills that are really important? So during my career break, I actually take up courses on artificial intelligence. I take up courses on human-centered design thinking. I actually reach out to my friends in the startup community to understand what is it like working in a startup. And that kind of prepared me for my next role, right? Because after my career break, I worked with an insurance company for a short while, and then I moved to a startup. And of course, I was mentally more prepared for that role. That helps me to cross the door, right? But even then, no matter how prepared you are, when you actually eventually make that transition, you will realize that you are never really prepared because there are just so many things that you do not know, right? And you don't know what you do not know until you try it. So I would say I don't really follow a decision matrix, but I actually intentionally seek out what is the growth industry. I always advise my clients and my mentors. I mentor young adults as well. If you want to join any organization, make sure that it is a sunrise industry because you want to ride with the wave.
Nice, Adeline. I think for me, right, I probably did not realize the importance of this till the last few years. In fact, I was just thinking, you know, in my job, because I'm a marketer, right, we always do like business planning, strategies for all the brands and all the launches. But we never do a strategic plan for ourselves. And I don't think anybody does it. So there isn't really like a checklist or a matrix that people follow. But what have helped me during my career break was I chanced upon this book called Designing Your Life. It is by two Stanford professors, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. And I follow the process and the framework in the book. And that therefore I developed my own Odyssey plan, which is essentially like 3 lives that you can potentially have. And I chose one of them to start testing and to kind of build into it. So it is a very design thinking sort of process, which I also learned like Adeline. So that has become something that I personally subscribe to. In fact, later on, I get to know the 2 authors, and I also learn to certify in that course. And I'm helping people to use that framework to sort of design their next step now. I can see the benefits of it, but I think at that moment in my 20s and 30s, probably I did not have that kind of foresight to kind of plan so many years ahead.
Oh, very
Yeah, I
interesting.
just want to add on to this little tip, right, which I mentioned in my book, Reinvent. I will highlight the word E. E stands for entrepreneurial thinking. You don't need to you don't need to be an entrepreneur to think like one. So what I mean is that really, especially if you have got wealth of experience, right? Stop thinking about, okay, what jobs can I do? Start thinking about, okay, with the skills and experience you have, what problems can you solve? And if you change that mental model, you are able to then even, okay, just going on to the question of ageism, right? I have in my last career break, even now I coach many clients in their 40s and 50s. They always talk about ageism. It's true, there's definitely ageism, but how you can overcome that is really focusing on what problems can you solve? What can you bring to the table? And when you switch that around and be able to talk about how you can add value, you are able to help the employers to see beyond the age, but see what you can bring to the table.
I love this point, Adeline, and maybe I'd like to expand on this because I think in my experience, because I've changed a lot of job and industry before, and every time people ask why, like, sounds like irrelevant, right? From FMCG to medical, then to food, then to oil and gas, then now doing like coaching and consulting. But I think similar to what you say, that entrepreneur thinking and understanding the value you bring, because there is actually a lot of transferable skill sets and soft skills that we have amassed throughout the years of our career, whether we know it or not. Actually, is inside us. You just need to kind of dig very deep and think about it. So what is the value that you can bring, whether to a new job, to a new environment, and to be able to articulate it, let's say to the employer, if someone asks you in an interview, to your next stakeholders, even if it's seemingly very different. I think that's something that I think all of us should, always have almost like an inventory list, a strength checklist to understand ourselves much better in terms of the qualities, skill sets that we have. What's our superpower? And that wouldn't change wherever they take you, whether from industry A or B, job A or B. So that's something no one can take away from you, and you need to hold it very dear to your heart.
So the ability to articulate your value and communicate your transferable skills, right, that can go beyond just the company and across industries as well. Right, thanks for sharing that. All right, so I think we want to answer as many questions as possible. So we'll move to another question, right? So I think okay, so we talked a lot about kind of like your transitions, right? I'm pretty sure that you made some mistakes along the way, you took some hard knocks and all that, right? So I wanted to ask, if you could turn back the clock, what would you have done differently when you first started to embark on your new chapter?
For me, it was like I wish I'm more agile and took career breaks earlier, because I learned so much more during my career breaks. And I would say I have fairly traditional career, staying each organizations. I stayed for at least 4 to 5 years. I don't job hop because I like the stability, right? And actually, in today's age, right? In fact, one of my company I stayed for almost 10 years. But obviously, I wasn't doing the same thing. I was doing different roles. My role kept on expanding. But despite that, moving to another industry does widen your perspective. So these days, when I talk to my friends, I talk to clients, right? And I would just be amazed at how they charted their career. Just not linearly, but in a different way. And I think in the future of work, it's no longer about climbing the corporate ladder. It's about building career lattice. And career lattice is about building skill sets. So it could mean moving vertically, moving horizontally, moving diagonally, or moving downwards before you move up. But just focusing on building that skills and knowledge base so that you can add value. And if you're good at what you're doing, you will be promoted.
Yeah, agree with the point about let's not fixated about keep moving upward vertically, but moving sideways, diagonally, or even off the industry and back. Totally, it's very cool. And I see a lot of actually Gen Z does that. And for me, right, if I were to look back, what would I have done differently? I would say nothing, because I think there is different priority at different seasons of my life. I spent my 20s really focusing on building my career, and 30s building my families. So now is the time for me to kind of reinvent and go into my career. Adeline say 4.0, and I do not know which decimal place I'm at, but in my new stage of life, I'll just call it this way. But one of the things that I wish I have learned earlier and done earlier is this whole notion about side hustles. In the past, we don't have this word side hustles. So you stay in your day job, and then you work till death, go home, you still need to do household and taking care of the kids. That's about it for life. But I wish I have, tried some of the things earlier, because I realized that actually I have a lot of unfulfilled interests and passions that I have not have a chance to try till now in this stage of my life. So it would have been great if I've done it earlier. And the other thing is networking. I'm introvert by nature. So, I mean, other than job requirement, I have not really expanded my network beyond to those stakeholders or industry leaders and people connections that I need to mix with. But I wish I have actually connected with people outside of my industry more to learn, because that's exactly what I'm doing right now. And I see so much benefits in terms of connecting with people that is, maybe not in your direct agencies, because you never know, there's a lot of opportunities that come, and you expose yourself to, the frontier of everything that's happening in the market. So that's something that right now I encourage everyone to do.
Yeah, wow, so awesome, because I think I'm also in the midst of a career transition of sorts, right? Running the Courage chapter. So I think I'm learning so much from all of you, benefiting a lot from there. And also I'm typing some notes while you're speaking so that people can refer to it also. Hopefully the summaries are helpful.
You're awesome.
Thank
Your
you.
note-taking skills are
Yeah,
Thank you, thank you.
fantastic.
good listening skills.
Yeah, thank you. And also I think because not every, I mean, when during the transition, right, some people might be transitioning to run a business, but there's also some people who want to change career. So that means they're going from one career to another career. And we all know that transitioning into a new workplace is also may potentially be challenging, right? For example, from Adeline, from her moving from an MNC to a startup, I'm sure the environment was wildly different, right? So wanted to ask the both of you, right? Can you share your experience integrating into a new workplace in your second chapter?
Okay, I can start first. I have many chapters. So I remember one of the very pivotal chapter was moving to a startup. So I went in full, okay, I was prepared. for the role, right? Because learning up about growth hacking, learning about all what the world of startup is. So when I joined the organization, already all geared up to do the magic, right? And then my boss told me the product is not ready. It's going to be delayed for 1 year. And that means that my job is at stake, right? I just left my previous role to join a new organization. So I had to be very agile. There was no job description. As a starter, I was the first marketing hire. So I had to keep on asking my CEO, right? Okay, what is your key priorities? What do investors look for? And I have to be very agile and really adapt, right? So instead of doing marketing role, I end up doing other things as non-marketing. I was in a product role. I was also doing investor pitches. I was doing usability tests. I was doing market validation, things that which I've never done before. But you just need to continue to be very quick and learn on the spot. And in this phase, right, you have to learn fast and fail fast. Be very intentional about what you're learning, and if it doesn't work, move on.
Yeah, I love the agility and that open mindset. You know, how you quickly, okay, my job is at stake. What else can I do? That pivot, I think is awesome. I just want to touch on a point, because a lot of time when we move into a new workplace, a new job, new role, there is this thing, especially for Asian, right? Imposter syndrome. I see that a lot. I mean, me included. Whenever you go in, you always feel like, oh, is this something that I can do? I've never done this before. But what I realized is that, and I have been always very grateful that I took on the challenge, even though I was scared. So it's like, even if it's damn scary, I still jump in scared, because that have really helped me to stretch my learning. And the learnings that I have is that you really just need to embrace the new opportunity, give yourself grace and time to kind of learn. Just tell yourself that everyone go through a 3 to 6 months learning curve. It is normal. And just you don't come in empty-handed, right? You come in with transferable skills. So at the same time, think how you can quickly value add to the new team, to the new workplace, while you are learning the new skills. So you combine, then that will make you like superpower, right? But also quickly network and build a support team around you as soon as possible in the new workplace. Because if you do not do it quickly within the next first 3 to 6 months, right? I find that it's a lot harder if you try to, let's say, then ask for forgiveness or ask for instruction in your second or third year. Because after 1 year, right, your license to say, hey, sorry, I'm new here. Can I ask you these silly questions, have expired. So do that. Ask any silly questions you have really in the first few months. And do not be afraid to fail. Yeah.
So one of the things that I have also learned in transiting to new workplace in my earlier careers, when I moved to a new place, right, I would say, okay, I know what I'm doing, right? So I would propose. Then I realized that it doesn't work. So now, okay, over the years, I've learned, right? I learned to listen a lot more, listen to understand the dynamics, to how people are interacting, what is the key focus, listen and ask questions, like what Dane said. I think it really helps a lot. And the one tip for you, for any one of us who feels imposter syndrome, imposter syndrome will always be there, right? Whether you move on to a new role, a new challenge, but just learn to reframe it, and make your imposter syndrome your friend, right? How can that push you to even do better? But of course, you need to know the boundaries, right? Knowing when you have to tell yourself that you need to take care of yourself and not push yourself over the cliff.
I love the reframing and make imposter syndrome your friend. So actually, that's exactly what I do. So it's almost like, a part of your business strategy, you always have the risk assessment, right? So the imposter syndrome is your besties to help you to do the risk assessment, because they will tell you all the things like, what if you fail? What if, let's say, for example, we do a podcast today, what if nobody turned up? So you then have to build your backup plan, your plan B, plan C. It helps you actually to think through all the different scenarios of, come up with innovations and solutions of how you can make it work. So if used correctly, imposter syndrome can also be our superpower.
It's a fascinating topic. Yeah. So I think so there's a lot of things that you all talked about. It seems like a very passionate topic for both of you. I have this very interesting question from Vincent actually. I'm cognizant that it's because all three of us are ladies. I guess maybe the guys are thinking, hey, then what's in it for me, right? So Vincent is asking, would it be different for a man versus a woman in the context to unlock your next chapter? What do you all think?
Well, to me, right, I think the chapter that we are trying to unlock or the life that we are trying to build is very individual. It's really up to you as an individual to kind of create what you want. So because we are all different, right? Just like our fingerprints, it's so unique. So your life or what works for you, your purpose, your value will be different from the person next door, will be different from the guy across the road. So that yes, there is subtle difference in terms of, you know, personality traits and how men and women operate, or sometimes people will say in terms of, let's say, societal expectations of a man versus woman. But by and large, your chapter is your chapter, regardless of your gender. I mean, that's how I see it. And I think there is, in fact, for a man, I think there is, people will always say, oh, there's more opportunities for men. I do not know that, but it's for you to find out, Vincent.
Yeah, I would say there's a slight difference. I noticed from the clients I've coached, men tend to be a lot more, I guess maybe because the networking comes a bit naturally to them, or is their personality, right? They tend to build their network a lot faster and more efficiently versus women who takes time to warm up, taking time to actually reaching out to people. And I think the power of network is so important, especially when you are moving in career transition. In fact, all these years, the last few decades, new opportunities come to me really through network, and they are mainly from my weakest link.
Interesting. Okay. So talking about like everybody's following their own individual path, and also that, sometimes networking skills is also so important, and some men can actually network faster and better as well. So I think that's interesting topic. Yeah, so Vincent said thanks. I think it was answered. And and I think I really want to ask this question because since both of you are here, right? We wanted to help everybody understand also, leveraging on our LinkedIn top voices, right? I wanted to ask you a question, like how do you stay marketable even when you're on a career break? So I think some of our audience here, maybe they are on a career break themselves, but they're looking to transition into another career. How can they remain like relevant and marketable? No better person to ask than both of you.
I can share my experience. I think when I was having the career break during COVID, right? I put in my earlier slides, I literally spent thousands of hours, doing learning. I was learning, I took up a lot of courses, both online and then subsequently when market opened up face-to-face, things like understanding AI, because I want to keep abreast of what's happening, the latest technology, design thinking, coaching, sustainability. So I actually tried a lot of different things. And to me, that mindset of lifelong learning, the growth mindset will always help you to stay relevant and marketable. But you also need to understand the trends. So by reading, by watching current affairs, that helped. And there's this saying, a human would not lose the job to the AI, but we will lose the job to people who know how to use AI or who understand AI. And I always strive to be the person, who understand it, who know how to use the latest tools. And I think that's, one of the things whereby you can, help yourself to stay relevant and marketable, even if you are on a break. Even when I was doing all the fractional work, part-time work, there is still a lot of skill sets I'm picking up that I feel is very transferable and relevant, even if one day, should I decide going back to a corporate job.
Yeah. I would maybe share the success stories, the clients I've coached. There were two sets of clients, interestingly, very similar career profile. Two women in the early 50s. One of them actually had a very illustrious career in broadcasting, was a famous broadcaster. I could recognize her name and all that. When she came to me, she left MediaCorp and then she moved on to ministry, doing work in a government agencies, and eventually, she was kind of not happy with her appraiser. She left, And then she kind of stopped work for a while. She came in to see me feeling very depressed, and she said that, okay, I think I'm too old for a marketing role. And it was a mindset, right? And I was trying to coach her to get her out of it. And on the same week, I actually met another client, similar profile, marcoms person, and she came in and said, okay, I'm finally ready to come back to work after 3 years because my daughter as well. She had to go for surgery and all that. And she came to me and she said, I'm very busy now. I'm learning Python. I'm learning digital marketing. I am also doing volunteer work at the church because she was doing press releases. She just wants to stay relevant, right? Doing volunteer work. And it is through all this network that she keep abreast of with what's happening. And when she does that, again, the power network, right? She land up in opportunities along the way. So it goes back to mindset, embrace an abundant mindset, and build a network.
And if I can offer any comfort here, I'm a total social media novice. If I can teach myself LinkedIn and content creation, I think anybody can.
Wow, okay. Inspiring. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with me. I think it's really great. We do note that there are some questions on Pigeonhole also. So I think want to give them the opportunity to ask them. Typically the Pigeonhole questions are a little bit more well-formed, like a longer questions. So don't mind if I just read them out, right? So okay, there's one question by Amanda. There seems to be so many things or roles that one could possibly explore and is excited about transitioning into. How do we stay focused to chart out our next chapter? So maybe Adeline can share because she talked about being distracted by many opportunities.
So for me so when I left corporate, right? One of the reasons why I published my book was there was an intention because I wanted to use that to open doors for me, and clearly it did help me to transit into my coaching business. But along the way, there were a lot of shining objects. I mean, I was still just freshly out of corporate, so still good, relevant, right? And I had opportunities coming to me. And it was so tempting for me to say, hey, stable income, good income, good job, should I go back? But I always go back to my North Star, right? What is important for me at this stage of my life? And also going, okay, so there's this book I would recommend you all to pick it up. It's written by Dory Clark, The Long Game. Her book actually inspired my writing as well. We always think, how do we think long-term in the short-term thinking world? Right? We always think about what's next, but actually, what is your aspiration? Aspirations are something that is longer term, right? And bigger. And your ambition is time bound. And your action, so the 3 A's, what action are you going to take to reach your ambition? And then how is this ambition aligned to your aspirations? And that helps you stay the course, and it has helped me because I keep on reminding myself, right? What would an 80-year-old Adeline thank me for what I do today? So I always ask myself that question now. Hope I answered that question.
Yeah, thanks. Dane, do you have anything to share?
For me, I'm a visual person, so I sort of form the big picture in my head. So it's almost like your vision board. So I have that, like the end game, like if I give you an example, the house that I'm trying to build, and then everything that I do, every little step that I do every day, sort of I know is contributing and building towards that final house that I'm trying to build. It would take long. It's going to be a journey, it's a process. I'm recognizing it, but I also feel heartened and happy that I'm actually doing things every single steps every day, moving towards the direction that I want. So that's helped me to stay grounded and help me to stay focused.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's awesome sharing. Because as somebody who is also easily distracted, I think that I gain a lot from that. So we do have maybe like two more questions. I think we'll take those two and then we can close off. So another question is, okay, so it's quite specific to the person's scenario. So I think this person has resigned from their current role and will exit soon, and the person is saying is quite shaken in confidence and feel like have reached a mid-career crisis. any advice? Seems like an open-ended kind of topic.
I think I always advise my clients, right, that every opportunity is a gift, or rather, if any disruptions or whether it's voluntary or involuntary, is a gift of time. Take that time to really pause and reflect on what is really important for you, which is why I also go back to the book, The Long Game, right? How is it that you cast your vision a bit longer? And then how are you going to how far are you from there, and what are you going to do to achieve that? So I would frame it positively and say, yeah, take a step back and look at this as an opportunity for you to reframe, recalibrate, and use it as an opportunity for you to plan for your next move. And of course, work with a coach.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this person is SG, is it? Sorry, I can't see your name, it's too small.
Country, TQ.
Yeah, I just want to say, I've been through it, but just know that this will be a temporary phase. You will come out of it, but what is important right now is to kind of keep calm, keep yourself collected, but really work through in terms of have the clarity in terms of the next step, what you want to do. It could be going back to the same industry, the same kind of role, or it could be using this chance, this opportunity to totally reset and pivot yourself. But I think the answer lies within yourself. Take time to really, sieve that out from your most inner desire. What is the purpose and the kind of life that you want to build? For all you know, this, when you look back 5 years from now, this could be the best thing that happened to you. So happy to, if there's anything we can be of support, DM us, and we can keep in touch.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, so I think we in view of time, we will have one question more, and then I'll do a closing, right? So the first one, the last question we have on the pigeonhole itself is that diversity in job roles and industry is crucial for varied perspectives and skills. Yet many HR professionals often reject diverse candidates, hindering the candidates of advancement opportunities. Okay, so I think it's a bit similar to what we receive on the Google Forms as well, which is maybe we can link it a little bit back on, how do you mitigate, like, let's say, ageism, probably that's one topic, right? And in general, how do you kind of view that the lack of diversity in organizations?
Dane, would you like to take that first?
Yeah, I think this mindset, I would say, is a very traditional mindset, and I definitely have come across certain recruiters and HR professionals that hold that mindset that, for example, you are a banker, you have to be a banker for life. They don't want somebody to come and like mid-career switches, that sort of things. But in the new future of work, I see that people start to understand that we need diversity on the table, whether it's gender, viewpoint, culture background, or skill sets. It actually provides a different perspective on the table. So if you find yourself in a situation whereby you run into, unfortunately, certain HR professionals that still have this mindset, really then try to bridge that gap to sort of link what you have in terms of your hard skills and soft skills to the role. I think at the end of the day is making that connections and helping people to see, although a different background, a different, a job title or a role, you can actually solve the same problem, because I think jobs are all about solving customers' problem or product problem, depending which role you are at or company problem. So really position yourself as to how you have that credibility and the track record to be able to solve those issues and bring value to the organization.
Yeah, let me just add on to that. I actually had a client, a very senior banker, who actually could not get back to a banking role because he was bankrupt because of a very bad divorce situation, right? And he was a high-flying banker. I could see from his CV, win a lot of awards and all that. And I worked with him, we actually worked through and look at what are his strengths. And obviously, as a private banker, he shared that he still has the network, or he still continue to keep in touch with his high net worth clients. His role was regional, so he know the nuances of people in Thailand, China, different parts of Asia, right? And he also has got, he's a salesperson. So when I actually uncover this skills that he has, right, and reposition him, it's all about repositioning. And actually, he felt that suddenly he had more opportunities. The casino wants to look to actually keen to talk to him because obviously because of his network. The people in the property industry wanted to see him because of, again, for his network, right? Because they wanted to sell him to sell overseas property to the clients. And also for non-profit organization was very keen to hire him because of his, again, connection to the high net worth to raise funds. Eventually, he decided, because of his conviction, he decided to work for a non-profit organization. So there are opportunities that you can move beyond. Just don't think of your role as, don't be constrained by your job title, right? But look beyond that. What skills do you have? And with that skills, what problems can you solve?
Yeah, this is awesome sharing. So I do note that this is like kind of it seems like a mini comment or statement, but I felt that you provided very crisp thoughts and clarity in your response. Yeah, so I think we close up with one kind of question talking about, like what how has life changed for you since transitioning from corporate to where you are now? So coming back to present moment. So how is everything right now? How has life changed for you, being now running your own business?
Yeah, sorry, if I could segue to that question about getting back to work after a career break, what was the challenges, right? Maybe I will just share my own experience. It was the first time when I took a career break, I was very intentional that I'll get back to work. So I actually had employers questioning me, why did you take a career break? That was like 7 years ago, right? Why did you take a career break? You are totally irrelevant, And obviously, every interview I get rejected, I get better. And also that pushes me to say, okay, I need to stay relevant. I need to find out what is in demand skills. So I had a bit of runway because I was actually planning to move back, but I started looking for roles 6 months ahead. So by the time I landed the role and I think I was ready to get back, I was actually acing the interview already. But really, being very intentional about your career breaks. When you take your career breaks, always articulate it in such that what have you learned during your career break?
Thanks for sharing. Dane?
Nice. So what have changed for me? I think that was your questions, right,
Yeah.
Kalin?
How has
Uh,
life changed, now, like back to present moment? So you all went through all these changes. So what's up now, right now?
I feel like I'm the CEO of my own company and my own life. That's how it feels like every day because I'm accountable to myself and myself only. So with that, right, it obviously come with a lot of freedom and flexibility, but also, I mean, it does have its own challenges and stresses. But I think as long as you are clear as to your purpose, your North Star, you keep going. But one of the things I must say I enjoy is that I feel like I have learned so much in the last 2 years. I've broadened my horizon. I'm meeting different sets of people. I really enjoy that because in the past, I keep meeting the same people within my company. I mean, globally, because I was always in global job. But it's the same set of people, the same people from the industry, the lingo are the same. But now I feel like I'm learning something every day. And that's the thing that actually energizes me and keep me going.
Wow, very inspiring.
Yeah, for me it's I would say same but different. Same because I still have the same level of drive and energy. My friends just wonder, they call me an energizer bunny. But the challenge of this is I have to manage my energy and time. Whereas in the corporate world, I have boundaries, right? I know, okay, I knock off. So occasionally I work on weekends, I work late nights. But now I can work on Sunday. So I sometimes wake up wondering, today, what day is today? So that is the different part. The same part, they will ask you build brands and do my own marketing. The difference is that now I market my own brand myself. I still set my OKRs, occupational hazard, but the only thing is that I focus on people targets, how many people I want to impact, and that drives my momentum versus revenue target. I used to hold one job and one side hustle. Now I think I have many jobs. I also got onto, I'm also a young lecturer. I am also a startup mentor with the SUSS Venture Builder program. That takes time. I also run my own coaching and mentoring practice. And I also am a mentor to young adults and sit on the board as well. So my husband always asks me, why am I always so busy when I'm actually off work? So I have to be very careful about managing my time and energy.
Yeah, I think I also wanted to add that Adeline is also my mentor in the I'm from the SUSS Venture Builder, so Adeline is my mentor from there as well. Yeah, so it's very nice how everything comes together. So I think that's awesome. I think we've answered like almost all the questions, and so happy that everybody is like asking so many questions. Seems to be very engaged audience, right? So I think segueing to the next topic, right? So do you want to prepare for your next chapter? I think that is a question that all of us are asking ourselves, and I presume we have these questions in our mind, and that's why we are here in this webinar today, right? So I want to give Adeline and Dane some space and time to also share a little bit about what they are doing.
Okay, thank you. I think to those who want to, okay, so the next part, we're going to share with you what we have put together. It's optional if you want to stay on. If not, we will still continue and just give you a bit of insights. Next slide, Jaslyn, if you could move to the next slide. So we have actually curated a one-day retreat. The program is actually curated with a lot of conviction and drawn from our experience coaching many clients and going through our journey as well. So the program is actually intended not just to help you get clarity, but is to actually help you go beyond clarity and take actions, right? And you know, we run it as a cohort base so that there is hands-on learning and there is also bias towards actions. And both of us will be facilitating the workshop so that you have diversity of experiences and we want to facilitate the conversations around the table as well. And the next slide. What you can expect from the one-day retreat is bias towards action. We want to help you align your values and drivers to your purpose. Identify the levers you can use to build your next chapter. Remember, I talk about moving to the next chapter doesn't mean that you have to give up everything. Find the leverage. And of course, we want to help you develop a roadmap. It's not just about getting clarity, right? But we want to move you beyond just clarity. And this is the expected outcome from the one-day program. Over to you, Dane.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. In terms of the approaches, I think it's not just say only, it will be very solution focused. We'll push the boundary and bias towards actions and experimentations. Be prepared that there will be a lot of deep work, a lot of self-reflections and doing action planning for yourself. So it's not going to be theory, it's going to be really hands-on session. And next slide, please. So who is this program for? Who we think might really benefit for this one-day program is corporate leaders who are already successful in their job, but they are looking to transit or do something that is more meaningful. Or it could be senior professionals looking for career pivot at this moment, mid-career professional looking to renew their purpose or passion in work, or just anyone in general who wants to prepare for their next step or next chapter in their life. Can I have the next one, please? So you already know us. So the one-day retreat will be co-facilitated by Adeline and myself. I think we have done enough introductions. And if I can just give the details in terms of the logistic, the dates and the venue. Next slide. Yeah, so the date we are looking at is on the 26th of April. It's going to be a Friday. It's going to be full day. We'll start at 9:30. We'll probably end about 4:30. The venue is at the Executive Center, which is down at the CBD, One Raffles Quay. We are actually opening this to a public at 699. But because of today, if I can have the next slide, We're going to offer to the participant, the TCC attendees today at $399. But you need to scan this QR code and key in the promo code to be available to this special rate. And because we really want this to be a very small and intimate group so that, you know, we can create the safe space and we can have opportunity to help each and every one of you. There's only limited to 15 space. We are not going to, you know, have a very big group because we want to have very closed door conversations and be able to go in depth with you. So maximum 15 space. And if you want to view to $399, please, you know, scan the QR code and key in the promo code, which is TCC 2024. We just keep this 1 second in case you want to take any picture. Otherwise, we are happy to move on. Adeline and myself will be also happy to stay back another 5-10 minutes in case you have any questions after this. Okay, I think that's about it. We can hand the time over back to you, Ka-Ling.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I think thanks a lot Dane and Adeline for joining us. This is something that we aim to do for our community often as well. I think we want to run many relevant sessions on how you can reinvent your next chapter, right? So we'll be engaging amazing speakers like both of them today as well. And I think just a reminder is that if you are looking for any like fractional type of work or part-time short-term type of projects, you can join our community. This is it will be free for the like so-called the job seekers, right? So just to be transparent, our business model is that we will charge companies instead. So you can feel free to just join us and we can have a call together to share with us what you are looking for in your next chapter as well. And of course, if you have any friends and family who are also interested in this, please share this profile with them as well. And I think finally, our last slide is want to share with you our next Courage Cafe webinar, right? So next month we'll be running something on personal branding. I think some of you asked, you know, how can I remain marketable? How can I market myself for my next chapter? So we will be sharing with you some LinkedIn you know, like way to beef up your profile and to post you know, stuff such that people find you relevant and give you opportunities as well for your next chapter. Yeah, so the date will be on the 24th of April, almost exactly 1 month from now. And yeah, we'll send you some email reminders as well. And thanks for all your very warm connections. And maybe Adeline and Dane can send your LinkedIn on the chat so people can follow you on LinkedIn as well. Okay. And okay, I think last one, what we want to do is to take a group photo, if you don't mind. So maybe Jess can stop sharing the screen, and if you can switch on your cameras, that would be amazing. We'd just like to take a very quick photo of everyone. And thank you for joining our first Courage Cafe. Okay, I see that some people drop off because they don't want, but it's okay. Thanks for the rest to switch on your camera. Okay, let me see. Okay. Okay, I will take a screenshot. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, I think we are good. Okay, thank you everyone, and hope you enjoyed the session. We will stay back for a short while in case some of you have questions for Adeline and Dane.